When I walked into the executive boardroom, not a single person recognized me. Not the CFO who once called me kid while shredding my resignation request. Not the HR manager who escorted me out like I was a criminal. And certainly not Esme, who had her hand on Zaid's shoulder, whispering something just loud enough to earn his laugh. Her laugh hadn't changed. Still calculated. Still cold. Still sharp enough to cut me in half. 5 years ago, I was just another intern. Unpaid. Unwanted. Easily discarded. But I remembered the day they fired me. I remembered the way Esme didn't even try to defend me. How she told me, "This is for both of us," before disappearing into a hotel suite with the same man who now sat at the head of the table. Now? Now I was the majority shareholder. Now I was the one who signed off on their salaries. And now, finally, I was here to collect everything they once said I'd never be. I took the head seat without asking. The board members shifted, confused. One of them leaned forward, frowning. "Sorry, who exactly are you here with?" I didn't answer. I opened the folder in front of me and slid the documents across the table. There, in bold print, was my name, Coulson R. Vale. Chairman and CEO. Silence fell like a bomb. Esme was the last to look at the paper. She stared. Her face didn't flinch, but I saw it in her throat, how it tightened. Zaid was the one who spoke. "That's not possible." I turned to him slowly. "Still sleeping your way through boardrooms? Or do you only do that when someone else is paying the bill?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Esme finally stood. "Coulson, I know." "Sit down," I said quietly. She didn't. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "You look different." I looked her right in the eyes. "Success does that," I said. "Especially when it's built on the ashes of betrayal." Back then, I didn't have much. An apartment with a leaky faucet, a secondhand laptop that overheated every hour, and a bank account that hovered dangerously close to zero. But I had Esme. At least, I thought I did. We met in a startup mixer when I was still a student. She was already working full-time, sleek black dress, wine glass in hand, talking about market growth projections like she owned the floor. I was standing by the snack table, fixing my tie for the 10th time, pretending I belonged in the room. She noticed me first, walked straight up, looked me over once, and said, "You're not in marketing." "I'm not in anything," I replied. She laughed, sharp and low. "Honest, I like that." That night, we shared a cheap dinner in a street-side stall instead of champagne and caviar. She ordered extra dumplings without asking, then gave me the last one without comment. She paid, and I didn't argue. That's how it always was. She was 2 steps ahead of me. More polished, more poised, more sure of herself. I was the quiet one with wild ideas and no real plan. She liked my ambition, said it made me dangerous, said she could see me rising. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. At the time, I thought we were partners. She handled the practical stuff. I handled the dreams. She said she believed in me, and I took that belief and built my world around it. I got an unpaid internship at Ardent & Co. Esme had already been working there for a year. She was efficient, charming, tireless. She brought in clients the firm had spent months chasing. Everyone loved her. And when I joined, she slipped me into the system without fanfare. "Keep your head down," she told me. "Don't draw attention. Let me handle the top floor." So I did. I took night shifts, picked up coffee runs, fixed bugs in back-end systems I wasn't even authorized to see. I slept 3 hours a night, ate whatever was left in the break room fridge, told myself it would be worth it. She kept saying, "It's just for now, we're building something." But every time she said it, it sounded less like a plan and more like a sentence. We barely saw each other outside of work. When I came home, she was already asleep. When I left, she was already dressed, and still I held on. Then came Zaid, director of strategy. Ivy League, designer suits, the kind of smile that made receptionists forget their own names. He walked into the office one day, and every department slowed down by half a beat. Esme introduced him at a company dinner. "Coulson, this is Zaid." Zaid offered a firm handshake and looked me in the eye. "Nice to meet you," he said. I hated him instantly. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was insecurity. Maybe it was just that he could afford things I hadn't even dared to imagine. Later that week, I walked in on them laughing in the lounge. She brushed his shoulder. He leaned in too close. I stood there. She didn't even blink. Want some coffee? She asked like nothing had happened. Zaid looked me over like I was the janitor. I started noticing everything after that. Her new perfume. The sudden weekend meetings. How she came home smelling like hotel shampoo instead of office air. Still, I said nothing. Because what could I say? We were barely holding things together. And the day I finally got my first paycheck offer, minimum wage, part-time, they pulled me into HR. They said the project I was working on had been dissolved. Said they appreciated my efforts. Said I could collect my things by the end of the day. Esme didn't meet me after. She didn't call. She texted, "Don't panic. We'll talk at home," but we didn't, because I saw her. I went to the rooftop bar near our apartment to clear my head. And that's when I saw her, Esme, stepping out of a black car, her arm locked with Zaid's. She looked radiant. He looked smug. They looked comfortable. And I realized for the first time that I was the only one holding on. When she came home, I was already packed. She didn't cry. She looked at my suitcase, then at me. "Where will you go?" I didn't answer. She sighed. "Coulson, you're brilliant, but you don't have leverage. Not in this world. You can't fight the system and expect to win." "Is that what this is?" I asked. "A system?" She didn't deny it. Just gave me a tired look. "I'm tired of being poor," she said. "Aren't you?" I was. But I was more tired of lying. The first time I realized she had truly chosen him. It wasn't the rooftop bar. It wasn't even the night she came home at 2 a.m. and pretended to sleep. It was the following Monday. I came to the office early to clear out my things. I didn't want to make a scene. I thought I'd be alone. Instead, I walked into the glass lobby and saw Esme, not as my girlfriend, not as the woman who used to curl up next to me in our cold apartment, but as a strategist. In a slim-cut suit, hair tied back, leaning across Zaid's desk. He was laughing. She smiled at something he said, then touched his tie to straighten it. That was all it took. My stomach turned. I froze mid-step, still clutching the box of my personal items. And in that moment, I finally accepted something ugly. She had been waiting for me to fail, not because she hated me, but because she decided I didn't fit the world she wanted anymore. She didn't notice me until I turned away. Then I heard her voice, "Coulson." Soft, neutral, as if we were nothing. I turned. She took one step closer. Zaid didn't look up from his phone. "I was going to call you," she said. "When?" I asked. She didn't answer. "I thought you believed in me." Her face was calm. Too calm. I did. But belief doesn't pay the bills. I stared at her. She looked past me. "I told you from the start," she said. "I needed stability. Safety. I spent years hoping you'd give it to me, but it was always just hope." She shrugged, her voice quiet but clear. "You're brilliant, Coulson, but brilliance without power is just noise." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Behind her, Zaid finally looked up and smirked, as if he'd won something. As if I was a child who'd dropped his toy. Esme followed my gaze, saw the look on Zaid's face, and, for a brief second, I saw guilt flicker through her eyes. Then it was gone. That afternoon, I walked out of Ardent. With no title, no money, and no clue what to do next. But I carried something else with me, not revenge, resolve. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted to never need her again. That was the day Coulson Vale stopped being a dreamer and started building something real. I found an abandoned workspace downtown. The rent was cheap. It smelled like mildew and failure. I moved in that night. The next morning, I wrote the first line of code. In the beginning, it was chaos. I barely ate, slept on the floor, taught myself what I didn't know. No one was backing me, no safety net, no second chances. But every bug I fixed, Every late night I survived, chipped away at the weight she'd left behind. In the silence, I found something sharper than ambition: purpose. 2 years later, I launched the beta version of my platform, a modular automation tool built for startups, coded from scratch, optimized for scale, no frills, no distractions. I called it VeilNet. No investors touched it, no articles mentioned it, but someone used it. Then 10 more, then 100. By the end of the year, we passed 1,000 users, then 5,000, then 10. I stayed anonymous. No press, no interviews, just a faceless product. I didn't want to be recognized, not yet. Then came the acquisition offers. They poured in. Venture capitalists, tech giants, startups pretending not to beg. But the one offer that caught my attention, it came from Ardent & Co. They wanted a licensing deal. For 5 years, I had been nothing to them. Now they wanted to rent my name. I declined. 3 months later, the news broke. Ardent's valuation had collapsed. Zaid had over-leveraged the company. Internal mismanagement. Disgruntled clients. A quiet scandal. I made the call myself, offered to buy them out. Full acquisition, clean slate. No one knew who I was until the ink was dry. Then, I walked through those same glass doors, this time in a suit that cost more than 3 months of my old salary. This time, with their futures in my hands, and she was still there. Esme, head of brand, still perfectly dressed, still perfectly poised. But when she saw me walk past the receptionist, she heard my name announced in the executive wing, her smile didn't reach her eyes, and I hadn't even begun yet. I thought I'd feel satisfied. I had waited years for this, planned every step. Visualized the moment I would walk back through those doors, not as an intern, not as a broken man, but as their superior. But when the elevator doors opened and I stepped onto the executive floor, something didn't feel right. There was no rush, no thrill, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a storm, where everything looks the same, but nothing really is. Esme was in the hallway, back turned, talking to someone I didn't recognize. I didn't speak, just watched her. The way her shoulders squared, the way she tilted her chin when she laughed softly. That laugh used to be mine. I remembered every version of her. The Esme who danced barefoot in our living room. The Esme who fell asleep on my chest mid-sentence. The Esme who held my hand under restaurant tables and whispered, "One day we'll have all of this." And the Esme who traded all of that away without blinking. She turned slightly and saw me. Her smile froze. Eyes widened, just a fraction. Then she turned back to the stranger like nothing had happened. That cut deeper than any insult. Even after everything, I still wasn't worth acknowledging. Inside the meeting room, I was handed documents, shares, contracts, executive memos. Zaid wasn't present. Rumor had it he'd taken a sudden medical leave. Coward. I wasn't looking for him. Anyway, I wanted her to see me, not the man I'd become. The man she discarded and never expected to return. And yet, standing in front of that boardroom window, watching the city I had once been invisible in, I felt empty. Why? Why did I still care? I should have moved on. Found someone new. Burned every trace of her out of me. But the truth was simpler. I hadn't just loved Esme. I had built my entire identity around proving her wrong, and now that I didn't know who I was without that fight. I ran a multi-million-dollar operation. I had real power, but none of it changed the way her absence had gnawed at me for years. I hated that. I hated how soft I still felt when I saw her, how a single glance still threw me off balance, how I still remembered the shape of her voice at 3 a.m. I pressed my knuckles into the conference table, trying to steady myself. This wasn't about her, not anymore. But no matter how many times I told myself that, my chest tightened every time she entered the room. Later that afternoon, I caught a glimpse of her in the reflection of a glass wall. She had stopped behind me. I didn't turn. "You really came back," she said quietly. I closed my eyes. Her voice sounded like memory. "I never left. I replied. You just stopped looking. There was a pause. Why are you here, Coulson? To make decisions, I said. And what decision are you making about me? I finally turned to face her. Her eyes searched mine, like she was trying to find the man she used to know inside the stranger in front of her. But he didn't exist anymore. I haven't decided yet, I said. She opened her mouth to speak, but I walked past her. I couldn't stay in that hallway. Not if I wanted to keep my composure. Because the truth was, underneath the calm, beneath the tailored suit and sharp lines, my heart was still a battlefield. Half of it burned with the need to shut the door. The other half still remembered. Her smile. And that part scared me more than anything else. What if all this power meant nothing if I still wanted her to say she was sorry? What if revenge didn't erase the ache? What if the ache was all I had left of her? That night, I sat alone in the high-rise corner office that used to belong to Zaid. The city lights stretched endlessly below. My reflection in the glass stared back at me, polished, composed, untouchable. But I knew better. I knew how long I'd gone without sleep. How many nights I'd imagined her choosing me instead. How I'd spent years chasing success just to hear her say, I was wrong. I hated that, but not nearly as much as I hated that she still hadn't said it. Would she? Could she? Or had I built an entire empire just to prove something to a woman who never even looked back? I leaned back in the chair and let the silence answer. No, she had looked back, and I'd seen it, in the tiny flicker of guilt in her eyes, in the tremble behind her calm. She knew, and that was why I couldn't walk away just yet. It was supposed to be a routine internal audit, a way to clean up the mess Zaid left behind. False invoices, dead accounts, and bloated budgets. Nothing unusual for a company scrambling. After mismanagement, until I saw her name, Esme Vale. Not V, not her professional alias, her full legal name, filed under a confidential payroll record, tied to an offshore payment account. It didn't make sense. She wasn't in finance. She didn't handle contracts. She wasn't senior enough to warrant executive compensation. But there it was. Consistent monthly payments, starting from this week after I got fired. Same timing, same department. My chest tightened. I requested the access logs tied to the old payroll server. When the data came through, it hit harder than anything she'd ever said to my face. She had approved my removal. It wasn't Zaid. Not HR. Not a higher-up. Her. She'd flagged me as non-essential in a departmental cost-cutting plan. She'd used the same phrasing they gave to contractors and janitors during downsizing cycles. There was no note, no comment, just my name and her signature. I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at the screen. For years, I'd blamed circumstance. Zaid's influence, the company's politics, even my own lack of connections. But it was her, the woman I trusted with everything. She hadn't just abandoned me, she had removed me, like a liability, like dead weight. The knock on the door broke my focus. I minimized the file. Esme stepped inside, holding a document folder. They said you requested the rebranding draft. Leave it, I said, not looking up. She hesitated. Is something wrong? I met her gaze then. She saw it instantly. Whatever expression I had, it drained the color from her face. Coulson. What happened? I stood and walked over to the screen. Opened the file again. Her eyes dropped to it. And when she recognized what it was, her hands trembled. You were the one, I said softly. I kept wondering how it happened. Who made the call? Who stabbed me in the back first? She swallowed. It wasn't like that. You signed the removal order. I didn't think... She started, voice shaky. No, I cut in. You didn't care. Esme stepped forward. I was under pressure. Zaid said we had to cut someone and I was the easiest to erase. She didn't deny it. You lied to me, I said. You told me you believed in me, that we were in it together, and all this time you were calculating how to move ahead, without me. Coulson, I needed to survive. I didn't know it would. Break you. It didn't, I said, voice calm now. It made me. Her eyes glistened, but I had no sympathy left to give. I stepped closer, dropped the signed document on the desk between us. This is your legacy, Esme, not your work, not your title. This. She reached for the paper, but I stopped her. Keep it, I said. Frame it if you want, so you don't forget what you sacrificed for a window seat and a title. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't wait. I walked past her, out of my own office, because if I stayed a second longer, I might have said something I couldn't take back. 3 days passed. Esme didn't come to work. No one said anything, but whispers circulated. Something about a family emergency. Something about stress. No one knew the truth. But I did. I thought I'd feel better after confronting her. Thought that finally seeing her stripped of the calm, of the mask, would be enough. But it wasn't. Because the truth? I didn't just want her to regret it. I wanted her to understand. Not just that she'd hurt me, but that I loved her. More than I ever loved myself back then. And she buried that love beneath silence, ambition, and the name on another man's office door. And now, she had nothing left to say, until she showed up at my apartment. It was late, past midnight, rain on the balcony, lights off. I heard the knock, and didn't move. She knocked again, softer. Then silence, and finally her voice. Coulson, I know you're in there. I opened the door without speaking. She was soaked, hair clinging to her cheeks, mascara smudged, but she didn't care. I didn't know where else to go. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, hands trembling slightly as she pulled off her wet coat. We stood facing each other in the dim light, city glow casting shadows on the walls. You shouldn't be here, I said. I know. Then why come? Because I didn't get to say what I needed to say. She whispered. I didn't come for forgiveness or sympathy. I came to tell you the truth. I folded my arms. Now you want to be honest? I should have been from the beginning. I said nothing. She exhaled shakily and stepped closer. I loved you, Coulson. Not the way people say it casually. I loved you. Enough to believe you'd make it. Enough to stay while we were both sinking. You call that love? I was scared. Her voice cracked. Not of failure, of you succeeding without me. Because I knew once you did, I'd never be enough. I thought if I could stay ahead of you, I wouldn't lose you. I laughed, bitter, hollow. So, you destroyed me to keep me close? I didn't destroy you, she said. I made the worst decision of my life. But you, she took a deep breath, you built something from it. I looked at her, eyes rimmed red, wet lashes. But it wasn't pity I felt, it was anger. And ache, twisted together in a knot too old to untangle. You had a choice, I said. You could have stood beside me, struggled with me. Instead, you chose to survive in someone else's bed. I didn't sleep with Saeed. Her voice was flat now. I blinked. What? She didn't flinch. I let you believe I did. Let everyone believe it. Because it was easier than admitting I gave up on the one person I loved most. My pulse slowed. I didn't want to be the villain who quit on her partner. I wanted you to hate me instead. So I stayed quiet. My throat felt dry. You expect me to believe that now? No. She stepped closer. I don't expect anything from you, but I need you to hear it. You weren't just a casualty of corporate politics. I broke us. Me. No excuses. The rain grew louder. She took something from her purse. A thumb drive. What's this? I asked. The audit files you didn't see? From 5 years ago. I was going to submit them to the board before they buried them. She set it down. It proves Zaid was embezzling long before you were let go. The list of terminations? He approved it. He added your name. I just didn't stop him. Same difference. No, she whispered. It's not. Because he would have done it with or without me. But I let him. I was scared of losing my position, of being dragged down. I chose myself. She was crying now. Quietly. I don't want anything from you, she said. Not a second chance, not a job, not redemption. But I couldn't keep walking around with this lie. I had to tell you. I stared at her. Not the woman who once wore control like armor. Just Esme human. And for the first time in years, I saw the person she'd once been, the one who gave me her last dumpling. Who believed I'd build something from nothing. I'm not the same man anymore, I said. I know. I don't trust you. I know that too. I reached for the thumb drive. The metal felt cold in my hand, and heavier than it should have. This clears me? She nodded. And implicates Saeed? Yes. Why now? Because it's the only way I can live with myself, she said. Even if it means ruining everything I have left. She stepped back. I'll go now. I didn't stop her. She walked to the door, turned the knob. But before she left, she said one more thing. I've loved you every day since you walked out that door, but I know I don't get to say it anymore. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood alone, the thumb drive still in my hand. The man I had become didn't need her, didn't want her apologies, didn't need closure. But the boy I used to be, the one she left behind in a tiny apartment, he had just heard the words he never thought would come. And somehow, that changed everything. I didn't chase her, didn't run to fix what was broken, but I didn't throw the drive away either, because even if forgiveness wasn't on the table, truth still mattered. And in the silence that followed, I finally understood. Closure doesn't always come in the form of revenge. Sometimes it walks, back in with rain in its hair and regret in its eyes. The thumb drive sat untouched on my desk for 3 days. I didn't plug it in. Didn't need to, because I already knew she was telling the truth. Esme never lied with her eyes. She just hid behind silence. And for years, I had been staring at the empty space where her apology should have been. Now I had it, and it didn't feel like victory. It felt like something far more dangerous. Power. Because for the first time since I became the owner of Arden & Co., I wasn't just in control of their contracts, departments, or board meetings. I was in control of the story. And stories, if told right, last longer than power ever does. So I made a choice. The next morning, I called legal. We released the full audit internally, including every falsified record tied to Zaid. We notified the media, quietly. Let them do what they do best. The headlines came within 48 hours. Former Director of Strategy Zaid Malik, under investigation for embezzlement and corporate misconduct. Whistleblower internal files, Sheikh Arden & Co. He ran. Of course he did. Tried to deny everything. Didn't. Work. His name burned across every business blog, finance column, and evening news screen. And when the dust settled, I issued one final order. Blacklisted. Anyone tied to his cover-up, gone. Anyone who knew and stayed quiet, terminated. I didn't spare anyone, except her. Esme's name never appeared in the report. Her role never mentioned. Her voice never quoted. I removed her quietly. Severance. NDA. A silent exit. No public disgrace, because her punishment wasn't public. It was private. Knowing she told the truth too late. Knowing the man she betrayed still protected her, because he didn't need her fall to validate his rise. When the HR notice arrived on her desk, she didn't contest it. Didn't ask for a meeting. She walked into my office just once more. She looked different. No makeup, no sharp lines, just Esme, bare, tired, and honest. I thought you'd destroy me. I met her eyes. I could have. But you didn't. No, I said, because some endings don't need flames, just silence. She nodded slowly. I deserved the fire. You deserved worse, I replied. But you gave me truth. And that's the only reason I gave you mercy. She placed a small envelope on my desk. This is the apartment key, the one you never came back for. I don't live in that world anymore, I said. I know, she whispered. I just wanted you to know. I kept it the same. The whole time I couldn't change it. I said nothing. She turned to go. At the door, she paused. You became everything I said you would, but better. I became everything you thought I couldn't. That made her pause. When she finally left, I didn't watch her go. I sat back, closed my eyes, and let the quiet settle. I thought it was over. I really did. But fate has a strange sense of timing. 2 months later, I received a letter from a firm in Paris. Apparently, a boutique design agency had requested rights to use VeilNet for a European expansion project. Small deal. Barely worth my time. Until I saw the agency name Aviles and Cummer founder, Esme Veil. I reread the name 3 times, not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. She hadn't disappeared. She'd started again, somewhere far away, on her own, and that somehow hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown. I approved the license, didn't tell her, didn't reach out, because that was the final piece. The real end. She didn't win. But she didn't lose the way I thought I wanted her to either, and maybe that was the difference between revenge and closure. Revenge wants to see someone suffer. Closure just wants to walk away without looking back. A few weeks later, I found myself outside the cafe where I saw her that first day, when she didn't recognize me. Same corner table, same bitter coffee, different man. A young couple sat nearby, arguing quietly over startup plans and branding strategies. She looked driven. He looked exhausted. I smiled faintly. Don't give up on each other, I wanted to say, but I didn't. I paid for their bill anonymously. Then I walked out. There was nothing left to chase, no ghosts, no grudges. I had the company, the legacy, the empire. But most importantly, I had the peace of knowing she saw it. She saw what she walked away from and lived long enough to regret it in silence. Ultimate revenge isn't shouting your success. It's knowing the one who doubted you is building from the ground up, with your tools, under your name, while your world stands tall above hers. Never needed to ruin her. She already knew what she lost. And that's what made it permanent. The world remembers the ones who rise, not the ones who flinched and looked away.